finally, the journey is over and we're home. We've had a good night's rest after what can only be described as an ordeal, really. And we are celebrating with our guides. We're singing the Kilimanjaro song, we're paying them, we're saying goodbye to friends, we're getting ready to go back to our hotel. And this gratitude settles on us, as well as the realization that they were the reason we made it. We are not the reason we made it. We achieved the feat of summiting Kilimanjaro thanks to their sacrifices. They carried us, they carried our food, they carried our tents, they carried our hearts when our bodies gave way. And this is what the 10th commandment is all about. Because it says that the law demands the blood of the guilty, but grace comes through the blood of the innocent. Isn't it true that what the law says is everybody needs to pay their own way? If you want salvation, you have to bleed because you are guilty. You have to earn it. You have to pay your own price because the wages of sin is death. You're supposed to pay. But we didn't pay. They paid. Even though we're giving them money for the services rendered, it was their blood and sweat, and literally blood. I mean, we look at them and they are not dressed warmly enough. They have torn shoes. They don't have the equipment we have. And they risk their lives and their health going up and down that mountain so many times in their lifetime. It's not good for a body to do that. And somebody in our group then suggested that we wash their feet. And this is something that always separates the humble from the proud. Because to wash somebody else's feet is not as hard as receiving the washing of feet, at least for me. I'm proud. I always wonder, what if my feet don't smell so fresh? What if there are little bits of fuzz between my toes? I don't want anybody down there with my feet. I don't want it. And this is the point at which I cried for the last time on this journey, was when we announced that we were going to wash their feet. Instead of them responding like I just did, oh no, wait, I haven't had time to wash my feet. Their response was to fall to the ground and to start ripping off socks and shoes. And they put up these feet. And I mean, those feet were quite something. It's the kind of feet where your wet wipe doesn't want to move. It gets tangled in the dry skin and the cracked heels. It is where you use one wipe and then another one and then another one, and you realize it's going to be a pack of wipes per foot to get this person clean, because these feet have not seen water in who knows how long. But in spite of that awareness that they must have had of how dirty their feet were, they held up those feet for grace. And this is the key. If you and I are going to understand the 10th commandment and be able to live it out towards others, we're going to have to understand that only the very childlike, abandoned receiving of grace is going to enlarge our hearts to a place where we can give grace to those who don't deserve it. Because if it's true that grace comes through the blood of the innocent, then it means we're going to give grace to the guilty. You and I are. And it's going to come at a price for us. And the only way we will be able to have hearts that are that generous is if we can receive grace the way these guides received the washing of their feet. What does it mean that grace comes through the blood of the innocent? Well, we understand, every Christian understands that in terms of the blood of Jesus, the innocent lamb slain for us, that our freedom and our forgiveness, our righteousness comes through the blood of the innocent Christ. We get that. But what we don't really get is that when we are in a situation where people wrong us, the same principle comes into play. But now we die. Now we bleed so that we can give grace to that person. Because if you wrong me and I am supposed to return the favor Christ did for me and give you grace instead of the justice you deserve, then it's going to come at a price for me. I'm going to have to sacrifice something of my own rights. I'm going to have to die to self. I have to take up my cross the way Christ did. And I have to bleed, even if it's just emotionally, because it's painful to be wronged and to not have a recourse. That is an experience Jesus talked about during the Sermon on the Mount when he said, when you get slapped on the cheek, turn the other one. When you are ordered to carry somebody's load for a mile, offer to carry it for the second mile. If you are sued in court unjustly and half your clothes is taken from you, give the other half as well. How can he ask us to do that? What does he mean by that? Does he mean that we should become pathetic and let people walk all over us? Is that what it's about? I believe no. I believe he is saying, I want you to practice this generosity, this grace, where people take something from you and you don't respond in a normal way. You don't respond with justice. You respond by bleeding, by serving, by giving up your rights. Because when you learn to do that, you really become free. You really receive all that grace was going to give you. Grace was not just going to give you forgiveness so that you can be free. Grace was going to give you an enlarged generosity, a bigger heart, so that nobody can take from you anything that really matters. So that no matter what they do to you, no matter what they take from you, you cannot be hurt. You cannot be offended because you're learning grace. And in a sense, when we start learning it, we still bleed a lot. It's still really painful. We still feel done in. We still feel so abused when we have to let people get away with it. But when we get practice through the tough situations, through all the injustices of life, it's possible for us to reach a freedom where we don't even bleed anymore. We bleed with the blood of Christ. We take the blood of the innocent Jesus and we apply it to the situation. And it would be like this. Somebody would offend me. And I would have every right to stand up for myself. But instead of doing it, I would take this offense and I would say, Jesus, I put it on you. Because you came to bear everything that is unjust. And now I take the blood that you shed on the cross and I bleed with your blood. So I don't get upset anymore. I don't get offended anymore. I give what your blood has bought, that grace, to that person. And what I would say to myself on the inside as a Christian, when I'm able to live grace in this way, is I would say, you know what, Jesus, you died for many a wrong thing I did. So who am I to get upset about this thing this person is doing to me? Jesus, you paid for this. And so I give them to you to decide whether you want to give them grace or justice, whether you want them to get away with it, or meet justice along the way, or be judged one day, or be released one day. It's all up to you, Jesus. I'm bleeding with your blood. I'm not even getting upset about the possibility that this person will never pay a price for what they've done to me. Once you and I can be that free to receive grace, dirty feet and all, and free to give grace by bleeding with the blood of Christ, we will have finally broken free from the law. I've seen many Christians so mature in their walk with the Lord, so loving, so giving, so generous, who stumble at this, I want to say this last line, and who still hold unto justice in their dealings with others. Who even pray, Lord, punish them. Who even say, Lord, when they finally meet you at the judgment chair, you will know what to do. I was given words by a lady who lived in the time of the Second World War, and she was in a Nazi camp, and she was eventually executed in the gas chambers, but before that she pinned to her coat these words. It said, Lord, remember not only the injustice that these men have done to us, but remember the fruits we bear thanks to the suffering, the generosity, the greatness of heart that has grown out of all of this. And when they come to judgment, let all the fruits that we have borne be their forgiveness. Can you and I maybe someday get to the point where instead of holding against people what they have done to us, give them the credit for having put some of our flesh to death through that injustice, through that suffering they have inflicted on us, so that now we are more free than we were before that first slap, before that first mile, before that first injustice in court. Because we have learned to grow fruit of the Spirit out of the soil of that injustice, thanks to the example Christ has set for us.